Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and today we have Shadows over Innistrad spoilers to look at 6 new cards to examine. Now, if you haven't been watching the Magic the Gathering website recently, they've had a countdown going on for quite some time. It expired last night around 7 p.m., and when it did, it started giving more information around the lore and the plane of Innistrad for this new block. It's actually quite cool, and there's some puzzles that you can kind of play along with, and if you solve them and you send the right answer in through email, you would get confirmation that you're correct, and when enough of the community gets the puzzle correct, they spoil a card. There's also some local sort of puzzles and games going on at the 3 Grand Prix that are going on this weekend, and they've already begun. We're already seeing cards being spoiled, and we will see more, no doubt, through the weekend. So whenever we have some spoilers to share, I'll definitely be back with a video and make sure that you all stay up to date with what's coming out. But today, let's look at the 6 cards that we have so far. Now, before we get into the cards, I do want to point out the artwork that you're looking at in the background is also from Shadows over Innistrad, and it is Arlen Cord. It's actually a Planeswalker card, and she transforms into a werewolf, is what it appears to be. Now, the card hasn't been spoiled yet, so we don't have that to share. However, we do have the artwork, and it sounds like a pretty cool concept, considering this is something I know Mark Rosewater really wanted to get into the original Innistrad, and now they're able to make it into this one, so that's kind of awesome. I also find it kind of cool that the art looks like Sigourney Weaver, which now I can't get that out of my head as I look at it. So there you have it. Having said that, let's look at the cards. Now, before we get to our 6 brand new cards, Brain in a Jar was officially confirmed by Wizards. This was kind of leaked / spoiled a few days ago, and we did a whole video on this card, so if you'd like my thoughts or more information on it, check out that video. I'll leave a link at the end of this one. But since we talked so much about it, I'm just going to move on to our new cards. First, we have Bygone Bishop, and this is a white and 2 generic for a 2/3 Spirit Cleric with flying. Whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, investigate. And investigate's a new mechanic that basically, when you investigate, you're putting a colorless clue artifact token on the battlefield that has pay 2, sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. So this is a rare. Now, at first glance, it looks a little underwhelming. A 2/3 flyer for 3. It's like, okay, why is that rare? But the ability is actually quite good, especially if you're playing an aggressive kind of white weenie build deck. Now, we haven't seen a whole lot of cards yet from Shadows over Innistrad, so bear with me on this one. But my assumption is we're going to see a lot of small white creatures like we saw in the original Innistrad block. You're looking at cards like soldiers, townfolk, all sorts of variety of humans, I'm sure will be in white, as well as maybe some small flying spirits and stuff like that. So having said that, this card could become actually quite good. There's already cards that are in the standard environment that just haven't found a home but would be really good in a white weenie deck. And I'm thinking of cards like Kytheon, which really never did anything. So this ability is fantastic. White weenie decks are going to have some extra mana at times, especially if they're just throwing down really cheap creatures. Once they get to the mid to late game, those decks usually become less good. This is a way to fuel a card engine and be able to draw into more threats in the late game. So this could be very, very good as long as the pieces are there to support it. Could be standard playable if that's the case, but regardless, it's still a good limited card. Next, we have Geralf's Masterpiece. 2 blue, 3 generic. This is a 7/7 zombie horror with flying, but it gets -1/-1 for each card in your hand. You can also pay a blue and 3 generic, discard 3 cards, return Geralf's Messenger from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Alright, so a couple things about this card. Let's talk about limited first. It's good enough. Now, this is a mythic. Paying 5 in limited, and even if it's only a 3/3 or 4/4 flyer, that's going to be okay for you. That's just fine. What's interesting, though, is its ability. Let's say this card gets milled or discarded or ends up in my graveyard. Now I can get it back onto the battlefield for just 4 mana. Now, I'm discarding 3 cards, but there's so much going on in this set where discarding cards doesn't have to be a drawback. You're going to see, we're going to look at cards in a few moments that have the Madness ability, for example, or just trying to get enough cards in your graveyard to get Delirium. This can actually fuel that type of engine. So I find this actually very intriguing. I feel like you can do some cool things with this card. Once we learn what the rest of the set looks like, this card could actually become very good. Now, it has to have a lot of support pieces there for it to be great. and it remains to be seen if those pieces are going to be there. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. Could this be standard playable? Perhaps, if the right pieces are there for a great Madness / Delirium build. But regardless, it's still going to be a good limited card. This is kind of a wait and see, and we'll talk more about it when we do the full set review once we have the full set. Next is Heir of Vulcan Wrath, which transforms into Heir to the Night. And this is 1 black and a generic. 2/1 vampire, discard a card to transform, activate this ability only once each turn, and it transforms into a vampire berserker, 3/2 flying. Okay, so basically kind of like Delver of Secrets. Here's what I like about this card. It's very aggressive, it's very fast. Unlike Delver, you're paying 1 more generic mana, sure. You're getting a 2/1 instead of a 1/1. But this is a lot easier to flip than Delver. Now, Delver is great in formats like Legacy because it makes it a little easier to flip. But this is very easy to flip. Discard a card and it flips. You can very easily be attacking in with a 3/2 flyer on turn 3. That's kind of awesome. And the fact you're also have the avenue to discard a card is going to be very powerful in this block. Like I said, we have Madness cards, we have Delirium. There's so much graveyard matters here. You're going to want to get cards in your graveyard. This helps you do it and gives you a 3/2 flyer at the same time. Okay, that's kind of amazing. So this is going to be a build around card. And it's funny for me to say this considering I haven't hardly seen any cards from the set, but I'd go as far as to say this is first pickable in a draft. It's that good. And it's going to be fantastic with Madness. I love this card. It's all the things that are great about Delver, and even though it costs 1 more, it's just so much easier to flip into a 3/2, and I just feel like it has more potential for great limited play and great standard play as well. I think there's going to be an aggressive, maybe black-red, aggressive creature deck out there in standard with the tools we're going to get from this set. Now again, I'm going out on a limb on this one. I haven't seen a whole lot yet, but that's just my vibe from the few cards we have seen. Also, I think this is good enough for Modern. Keep an eye on this one. Fantastic uncommon. Pick the Brain. 1 black, 2 generic. It's a sorcery. This is an uncommon. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it and exile that card. And it has Delirium. If there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, search that player's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as the exiled card. Exile those cards, and then that player shuffles their library. So here's the thing about these type of effects. Now, I appreciate the fact that it's exiling the cards and not putting them in the graveyard because you don't want to help your opponent by putting stuff in the graveyard in this set, so that's great. Works well with the processors from the previous set too, no doubt. These type of cards, though, are better when they cost less than 3, obviously. You know, your Thought Seizes are amazing cards. This isn't quite as great at the 3 spot just because now by the time you use it, your opponent's had ample time to get some of the early threats out, which you may have wanted to use this on. But it does let you pull a late game threat out of your opponent's hand. It does help you deal with any cards in the environment that become so powerful that players want 4 of in their deck and they cost more than 3, because then you have a chance to perhaps, if you can get Delirium, pick apart their deck. So imagine if this existed about a year ago with Siege Rhino, maybe this would have been a card that could have helped deal with that. I don't know. So I don't know, just at first glance I'm not like super excited about it because the casting cost feels a tad high. I just don't know how easy it is going to be to get Delirium by turn 3 or turn 4. If it's easy, then perhaps this could see a little bit of constructed play in the right deck in standard. If not, then probably not. But it can work for you in limited. This is one of those cards in limited that you may throw in as a 22nd or 23rd playable, and it could do a little work for you. Or you board it in if your opponent has a big expensive threat that you want to try to pull out of their hand. Next is Relentless Dead. 2 black, 2/2 zombie with menace. And when it dies, you may pay black. If you do, return it to its owner's hand. And you also have the ability on here that when it dies, you may pay X. If you do, return another target zombie card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is actually quite good. This is another really good aggressive card in black. We know zombies are going to be a theme as well, so it is a zombie. That's going to matter. But just the fact that this isn't a legendary, so this works with itself. You can bounce one of these back for another one of them and put it directly into play, it's just going to get kind of crazy kind of quick. And again, this is more, I guess, another clue you could say that there's going to be a strong aggressive feel to black. This is a very quick creature. It can get in there and do some damage. Now, granted, it's 2 on color to cast, which means you might not always be able to get it down on turn 2, but even if you're getting this down turn 3 or turn 4, it could still do some work for you. This is a mythic, and even though it just kind of looks like a hate bear, it is a hate bear, it could be quite good. So keep an eye on this one. I could see this perhaps making standard in an aggressive build. I could perhaps see a modern zombie deck where this could be a part of that as well. Who knows? So keep an eye out for this card. It's very good and limited as well, obviously, for getting some early damage in. Incorrigible Youths, and this is the last card of the day to look at, but another really good aggressive card. Now this time it's in red, costs 2 red, 3 generic. It's a vampire with haste. It's a 4/3, and it has a madness cost of a red and 2 generic. So picture this. At uncommon, you have this. You have the Heir of Valkenrath. If you can play an Heir of Valkenrath on turn 2, turn 3, flip it, and play this for its madness cost by discarding it, you can attack in on turn 3 with 7 damage. That's awesome. So 4 of these and 4 of the Heir of Valkenraths in a deck, you're already starting to put together a pretty good aggressive deck, and we haven't even talked about any other cards. Throw a couple of those zombies we just looked at in there as well, and we got the start of a very, very good deck. So that's why I really think, even though I've only seen a few cards, that red-black aggressive could very well be a thing in standard. This looks pretty pushed. It's going to be great for you in limited as well, obviously. If you can discard this thing, get a 4/3 haste for 3, yeah, that's pretty awesome. 4/3 haste for 5 is okay. I mean, that's fine in limited, but if you can play this on turn 3, you're going to be in for a pretty good time, I think. So those are the cards so far today. Like I said, as more cards get spoiled, we'll be back with more videos to update you. And as a matter of fact, starting Monday, we should see the official spoiler season begin. So expect at least 1 video a day as more and more cards come out. We'll get the information out to you as quickly as possible, as we always try to do. And then that will end, of course, with our full set review once all the cards are spoiled. So as far as a quick programming note, that may mean some of our other regular segments won't occur as we're going through spoiler season, but if there's a day off from spoilers, I'll try to work some other stuff in as well. So as always, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a good day.